I just watched what might have been a prequel to the spaces between Panpsychism and Eliminative Materialism, this Semiotic universe. Corey Anton, once again, towards the end of this talk, he draws a distinction between sentience and intelligence. The orderliness that is intelligence is not necessarily sentient. And what occurred to me is how a paradigm that involves time and an arrow of time, a flow of time, is, how do I want to say it? It's impressive. There's almost a compulsion to see time as flowing from the past into the future as if it were always not now. And in search of a paradigm, a different worldview which could encapsulate older paradigms, an eternalism of sorts, where sentience and insentience arise mutually, intelligence and unintelligence arise mutually, even temporality and eternity arise mutually. They play off of each other. But there must be something else ontologically, call it Tao for lack of a better word. And there's plenty of room at the end of time, where we are always at the end of time, to reach back into time as we do when we observe, when we create this story of emergence. In a sense, in a way, we are creating time, and then we objectify time and presume that we are not involved in the process when we're involved all along in the process of telling the story. So what we want to do is take ourselves out of the story and say, in the beginning there was no sentience, but there was insentience. And I don't think that's a good way to start the story. It sort of lops off half of the equation. But it's a good way to start the story. Once upon a time, there was stuff that wasn't smart. We'll pretend that that's the case. We'll imagine that. That's our imaginary universe. And to give it a number, we'll call it the square root of -1. We'll call it I, a small I. And we'll draw from this point of origin a few other dimensions, call them real axes, X, Y, and Z, along with the complex one that we started with in the first place, and just spin the rest of it out from there. Sure, why not? And if our equations can be made to match up with some observations, then a very good mathematical model might be constructed. Of course, it might take some fiddling. You might need another 7 dimensions or so. Maybe 8 if you want to throw time in there to come up with 11. Sure, string it along. Might as well. The theory is going to include us in the end, but we're also the beginning of the story. So there's the old Mobius point of inflection. And that gets taken for granted in the beginning of the once upon a time telling of the story.